Some names in Pilates world are so important that they almost no need an introduction. Still, it feels right to take a moment to recognize the incredible work of the persons I will be talking with today. She is one of the few people certified by Joseph Pilates himself, a living link to the origins of this amazing method. Her dedication to preserving and teaching Pilates has shaped how it's practiced and taught around the world, aspiring countless amount of instructors as well as practitioners. Through her work, she has not only kept the original vision of Pilates alive, but also injected her experience of professional ballet and knowledge received of Dr. Brent Anderson, who has contributed his scientific research on the human anatomy and biomechanics, emphasizing the importance of comprehensive training for Pilates teachers. It's an absolute honor and privilege to welcome Lolita San Miguel, a Pilates elder and a true pioneer of the method. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
You have had such a remarkable journey, bridging the original teaching of Joseph Pilates with the evolving landscape of the Pilates education. Could you please share how all this began to you and what brought you into Pilates studio back that time?
Well, I started dancing when I was 7 years old, and I knew immediately that I wanted to have a career and dedicate my life to dance. And that was classical dance. And I lived, first I should tell you that I was born in New York, but my parents both were born in Puerto Rico. That's an island in the Caribbean, and a beautiful island. And we went to live there, and that's where I started to dance. I then, at 11, continued, came to New York to continue my training during the summer. And unfortunately, my father passed away. So 4 days after we arrived, and I became fatherless at the age of 11, which was very challenging. My mother decided to stay and live in New York since she felt it was a better place for my education. I went to the School of American Ballet, and I studied there for years. I also studied Spanish dance and other types of dance like jazz. And my mother wanted me to be truly well trained in dance and all its phases. I was fortunate to be accepted into this wonderful new model school for the arts called Performing Arts High School. And therefore I went to high school in this, and 46th Street, West 46th Street in New York. And this was a school that became a role model for all those that wanted a full either drama or music or dance, and at the same time a college preparation, which was also very important to me and my mother because I had very good grades. And so graduating time, I had to decide whether to become a lawyer or become a dancer. And that was very difficult for me, truly difficult. And I chose dance, for which I'm grateful. It was a good choice for me. And I really am passionate about dance as I am about Pilates. But while I was a dancer at the Metropolitan Opera in New York City, I was taking a class, and the gentleman next to me, as he thrust his leg, he hit my left leg, and it caused trauma in that knee, and I was taken to the hospital. The doctor was very famous, Dr. Henry Jordan, and he said that I did not need surgery, but that he recommended these exercises that were excellent and were especially for would help for dancers. And he called it contrology, which was the name that Joseph Pilates gave it uh, when he created it. So he told me to go to this lady called Carola Trier, who was my first teacher, and she had been a disciple of Joseph Pilates, who had opened a studio in New York, also in New York. So I went there from the moment I walked in, and I saw the place and I saw the apparatuses. I was in love with it. When I tried the method on my body, I was really convinced that it was excellent. So I became a regular client, and for 7 years I attended. And one day Carola said to me, why don't you consider being my apprentice? And it so happens that there was a program called Career Transition for Dancers. We all know that dancers have a very short professional life, and they would pay for our training in some other profession. So I was able to have my training paid to Carola, and for a year and a half, I went to Carola as an apprentice. While I was there, I met, while I was at Carola, I met two ladies. The one was Romana Krisanovska, and the other one was Kathleen Stanford Grant. Kathleen, we called her Kathy, worked in the afternoon, and I went in the afternoon, so we became good friends during my apprenticeship. So when I graduated, I said to Kathy, we were talking, and I said to Kathy, I don't know what I'm going to do with this training other than add it to my ballet teaching, because I was teaching ballet. I had already spent 10 years at the Met, and I was teaching ballet for Dance Theater of Harlem and Ballet Hispanico of New York, and my own alma mater, Performing Arts High School. So she said, well, why don't you go to Joe's? Mm-hmm. I said, Joe? Who's Joe? And she said, Joe Pilates. I said, well, I thought he was dead. I thought he was dead in Germany, because he was German, and Joseph Pilates was living in England when the First World War broke out, and he was placed in an internment camp. That was not like the Jews were placed in camps. This was a camp for aliens, since he was born in Germany and he was living in England, and so he was considered an enemy alien. He was placed in this isle called Isle of Man, and he was there for 3 years, and 3 to 4 years, and there he worked in the hospital, and he worked with the other men that were in his group, and he was very grateful that he'd had that time to work with not only the soldiers that were brought in injured at the hospital, and he would to give them movement to strengthen them, but he was also had time to develop his method. And so getting back to Carola Trier, I saw the apparatus, and I've always, to this day, and I'd like to say I had my 90th birthday recently, October 9th, and I still love the method. I'm still like always discovering new things and saying thank you, God, thank you, Joe, thank you, Joe. And I said to Kathy, well, Kathy, I thought he was dead in Germany. And she said, no, he's right here in New York City, 3 blocks away.
Wow.
So I was shocked. And she said, let's go there. Let's go there and ask him to certify us. Okay. So we walked our 3 blocks, went up this flight of stairs, and it was an old building. It is still there. It is a historic building because so many artists have throughout the years lived there, and many of them lived there and had their studios there, or others just had a studio. And so we went up the stairs because the elevator was not working like usual. And she opened a door, and I was like surprised because there was clothing hanging, and it was a room in which obviously people lived with like a living room, one studio or something. And there they had a table, and they had the Pilates chairs around the table. They had 2 beds, which were V-shaped, which was a part of his creation. And so they had a lot of equipment, things that I did not expect to find in a studio. Carola's studio was her living room, but it was quite large and it was immaculate with the equipment, and the atmosphere was
Different.
sparkling. Everything.
Sparkling in relation to. Okay.
Yeah, sparkling. And she was German, as he was German. And so in this room was this lady. And this lady was Clara, Joe's wife. And Kathy said hello, and she was wearing a white uniform like a nurse and little white shoes, and she had gray hair, and she had this lovely little face with blue eyes, and she looked so maternal and so lovely. So Kathy said hello and to her and introduced me, and she said, we're here because we want to be certified by Mr. Pilates. And she didn't know what that was. Well, with that, the door opens, and in walks this ball of energy. I call it a tsunami of energy. And Kathy says hello, and she introduces me. And she says, we're here because we want to be certified by you. And he says, certified? What's that?
So you actually never took a sessions before you asked for the certification with him?
Yes.
Okay.
But he knew
He knew Kathy.
he knew Kathy, and Kathy said, this woman was just certified by Carola. So what he was surprised at was that Carola was certifying anybody in his work.
Yeah.
So he looked at me and he pulled up and he walked away and he didn't say anything. And I thought, well, that was it. But no, then he turns around and he says, and what does that mean, certified? So we explained to him that the Department of Education, through this program, Career Transition for Dancers, would pay him to train us as apprentices to him and assistants to him. And that, well, we would be working there for a year or something. And we had 500 hours that we had to complete. And so he said, all right, go and get your papers.
Easy.
So but it took a while to let him understand. There wasn't so much to convince because he liked the idea of having help.
Of course.
And he was 82 or something at the time. So he knew we would be there to help. And so when we got our papers in January of 1965, we started going
To studio.
to the studio. And, well, what else do you want to know?
So you started with Carola before Joe, and then
Yes,
with
7
Joe.
years,
7 years with Carola.
And
What was the difference was there any difference in their teaching styles and approaches to the training clients and also treating you as an apprentice?
well, Carola was very strict. She was quite rigid. And she really, I had the same question to myself when I went. I said, I don't know if what I have been taught is really what he wants or is right.
Yeah.
So when first day I went in and put my mat on, and nobody said anything to me, and so I did my mat work. Now, he came in, she came in, they sort of watched, and nobody said anything.
Oh.
So then we agreed on the hours where I would be working. And Kathy went in the morning, and I went in the afternoon. So that way he had help all day long.
So you were actually teaching clients in the studio, right?
Yes.
Instructing.
Yes. But teaching the way he did it was a little different from the way we teach it now. He was not hands-on all the time. He you never felt that he was your private teacher. No, there was a room full of teachers, and he would say, and he wouldn't even sometimes walk to you, but he would say, put your left shoulder down or lengthen your spine. And a lot of it was done via pantomime or lower your ribs or belly button to spine. He would give you corrections. But everybody worked. If you came in at 10:20 and you started at 10:20, so you were along this side, around this side, and somebody came in half hour later and they started at the beginning, they were behind you. So everybody was at their different pace.
So there was kind of some order which people had to follow, or how it looked like to make a session.
Yeah, there was on the wall was covered with pictures of Joe and the name of the exercise.
Mm-hmm.
The picture of the exercise and the name of the exercise. Also, there was a blackboard that sometimes he wrote down the exercises he wanted
Mm-hmm.
to emphasize. Most people really came 3 times a week and more.
Mm-hmm.
Many came every single day.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
different thing.
absolutely. And so in the room, there was Clara, of course, and two people that he hired. One was a woman, a German lady called Hanna Sakamirda, and the other one was a gentleman called Bob Seed.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob and I became fast friends, and Bob gave me an awful lot. He was a wonderful teacher. He was a hockey player, he was very strong. And so he also contributed. And of course, there was Joe. And I would get there and I would warm up and myself, because I usually went right after Joe had lunch. And, had a little rest around 1 o'clock, and I warmed up, maybe in the reformer or maybe on the mat or cat or whatever was there and available. And then the people started to come in from work, and the wives from taking the children and that kind of thing. And then I went to work assisting clients. Joe, at that stage of his life, was very going through a depressed stage. He was very sad, and you would see him like very pensive, looking at the floor. And sometimes one of the clients would say, "Joe, what's the matter? You're so quiet." And he'd say, "Well, I didn't accomplish what I wanted with the method."
Despite he had a full studio and people coming and all this running on.
Well, he wanted the whole world to be doing Pilates. He wanted the whole world to know Pilates and be doing Pilates, and he worked very hard to achieve that. And in America, he wrote to President Kennedy because he had back issues from an accident in a submarine during the war. He used to go to Macy's and sell equipment like maybe the ring toner or
So
magic
he
circle.
tried as much as he could.
Right, he tried, and he said, and I did not accomplish what I wanted with the method. The whole world should do my method, he would say. And so he was going at that time, and he said, he would say, "I don't have much time left." And he said, "So I have to really, work to accomplish what I need to do." And he said, "Someday they may realize."
And we are now.
He said, "Someday they may realize how good my method is." He never ever doubted the the, the work. The work, and he was like this with the work. He was not interested in the arts. He was not interested in anything other than his work. And he said, "Someday the world will realize the value of my work." And so it has happened in the, and
And
well, I I got finally my certificate, which I have at home. Unfortunately, Kathy lost hers, but I still have mine, which I treasure. And uh, after I finished with Joe, I was teaching ballet and Pilates in the places I mentioned before. And then my husband said about going to live in Puerto Rico. And he was from Puerto Rico. And so we thought it'd be a change. And we went to live in Puerto Rico. And the moment I arrived, the community of dance who knew me or knew of me asked me to start a ballet company.
Okay, so.
And I started Ballet Concierto de Puerto Rico. Joseph died in October 9th, 1967. October 9th, 1967. It happens that October 9th is also my birthday. And so I was not in New York at the time. Kathy let me know several months later because I was, and she didn't know how to get in touch with me as I was traveling. So I found out about Joe's passing, and it was from emphysema, which is not surprising to anybody because Joe smoked 17 cigars a day,
It's
plus,
incredible.
plus cigarettes on a couple of packs a day. There was a period in his life where he drank also pretty much, I would say, a quart a day. And he didn't take care of himself. He used to go running around the block in winter with his little short pants and his white turtleneck T-shirt and his espadrilles, just like Clara wore her little white uniform. He had his shorts and turtleneck. Sometimes it was white, sometimes it was black, and but that was the uniform. And I sense that one of the things that teachers have to protect very much is their throat because we do so much talking and it's usually in a large room with people and we want to project energy, we want to be heard, we want to give them an oomph for that hour or more class. So therefore we do put a lot of stress on our vocal cords. So Joe had that problem, and so did Kathy, and I'm certainly hoarse most of the time. Well, at any rate, Joe was taken to Lenox. No, he was buried by the Masons. He was taken to the hospital, same hospital I had gone to, and from there he passed on. And Joe, since he was a Mason, his body was taken, and the Masons do all the arrangements for the funeral, and it is his ashes, as well as Clara's ashes, 10 years later, were placed in this place called Ferncliff Cemetery, and it's in upstate New York, Hillsdale, New York, and they're beautiful urns next to each other, of the two of them, and it says Pilates at the bottom. That entire row is our Masons, like him, and it's a beautiful, beautiful cemetery, and it's marble and impeccably landscaped and kept, maintained.
We will get into this story a little bit later. I would like to jump back a little bit into your time of training with Joe. So, what was the most outstanding for you about his teaching philosophy?
Well, Joe did not like to explain. Joe didn't like to talk much. Joe, if you asked him something about the exercise, he'd say, "Do it. Do it again. Do it again. Again. Keep doing it." And finally, you said, "Well, I understand what my question was from just doing it and doing it." But he was not one to explain to you the scientific detail or the anatomy. He was not anatomical in that sense. Remember, Joe had no formal education. He had up to high school, I think, and that was it. And he never much explained. But you learn the most with him from watching him. And as a dancer, I was trained, and we are all trained to really look, listen, and remember. There were a choreographer came in, showed you a routine, you had to learn it and perform it. That was that. And it was that way throughout. I don't have one piece of paper from my time with Joe, nor with Carola. Neither one of them ever used a manual.
So then we can say the structure of the training was a training by observation and repetition, practice and practice and practice.
Absolutely. And I felt the hunger to know why this, why that, because my mind was asking me, why? Well, after Joe passed, I was living in Puerto Rico and whatnot. There was a trial in which the method was declared generic, and its name was changed to the Pilates method rather than contrology.
So that was, which year was that?
That was the year 2000.
2000.
2001, by the time the decision of the court was made that Pilates is generic. Pilates is a term to apply to this method. Neither Joe nor Clara, when they passed, had a will. They didn't have a will because they didn't have children. So they didn't think it was necessary to have a will, which obviously it was. They had all that gorgeous equipment. And,
absolutely.
But the school, the place, the studio was just chaos because Clara was in no condition and to run it, and the clients kept coming, and they would teach each other.
Wow.
Yeah, and so when I went to Puerto Rico, I thought I would uh, teach Pilates, but no, and I spread Pilates over the island. Everybody in Puerto Rico knows Pilates, and the next they say was Lolita San Miguel who introduced it to us. And then I got into the ballet company, Ballet Concierto de Puerto Rico, and I started the company from scratch, and it was very difficult. Puerto Rico is a poor island, and there are many causes for people to contribute to. So the arts, like always, fall a little far behind. And so my company now has 46 years. Last year, I went there and celebrated our 45th year. And
And you train your ballerinas with Pilates method, right?
uh,
You train your ballerinas with Pilates.
absolutely. They did Pilates first, and then they went to the bar. That was. Don't discuss it. Don't argue it. Don't say I don't like it because too bad.
Yeah.
Too bad. And so I directed the company for 26 years. And that's when my husband said, let's move. And he says, I was 70 years old by then. And so we moved to Florida. And by now, the method was considered generic, and there was an invasion of teachers wanting to learn more, especially in Europe and South America. There was great curiosity that had not been satisfied. But then I started to get lots of calls to travel and teach the teachers, and which I did for quite a few years. And then I got tired of that, and I created the
Legacy.
the Pilates Master Mentor program came up first, and so I would travel to teach the teachers basically, and then the teacher said, "Well, we need something to teach
Students.
to teach young trained teachers," and so I started the legacy, and I have now Lolita's Legacy and Lolita's Master Program with Lolita's Educators. And Nadja is one of our educators. She's a beautiful mover. She lives in Vietnam, which is really
Far.
far and pioneer work. She has to, her main job is to educate, is to introduce the method and to show the benefits of it. And it is especially challenging when you live in a country where you don't speak the language and you are a foreigner and you have blonde hair and gorgeous face and tall. And
Thank you.
what is this lady teaching us here?
Lolita, let's jump then to the educational thing. So, comprehensive training. This is what you did. That you created the legacy, which is 500 hours of training. And why do you think it's essential for Pilates teachers to have this kind of length?
Okay.
And what do you see? Which risks there if they take fragmented courses or
You see, in my training back in my time, when you said Pilates, I studied Pilates, everybody assumed, and they would assumed it correctly, that you went into the studio And you worked on the reformer, you worked on the mat, you worked on the Cadillac, you worked on the chair, and that was called Pilates. Now, I was very surprised when all of a sudden I am teaching somebody and she's very good in her mat work and no, she's very good in her reformer work. And then I introduced certain things of mat work. She didn't know them. And I said, how come? She said, well, I only teach reformer because I only learned reformer.
Mm-hmm.
So that shocked me. And I said, you mean to tell me you don't know mat? No, I've never studied mat. I studied reformer. And she seemed to think that's perfectly logical.
That's Pilates.
Uh,
This piece is
yes,
just
yes. And I looked at her in horror and I said, wait, don't call yourself a Pilates teacher. You're not. You are a reformer teacher, maybe, but Pilates, when you say Pilates teacher, that means to me the entire gamut of the work that he created in different apparatuses, starting with the base of the mat.
And the reason of having this variety of equipment was that we have to find the position, the equipment where we can suit the body, right?
Right.
So,
We have the option of all this equipment to get to our goal with that person. Is it a recovering from a hip? Is it the feet? And is it how you stand? And if you haven't had mat, you have not had much emphasis. I mean, in posture, you have not had much emphasis and you like going against the wall or on feet. All of these things are basic Pilates and they're not really taught in reformer.
where you're lying down mostly or you're kneeling, but you're never standing much up, like when you do
Right.
standing work.
Very little.
Yeah.
Or side.
Yeah.
Side. Oh. So
I didn't plan this question, but I'll ask about the standing work.
standing.
Many schools now, they don't teach anything standing, actually.
No.
And
like if they don't teach Cadillac, they very often completely ignore standing work.
and we have in legacy work, we have wall exercises and we have a pedal pull, which is, I think, forgotten at all.
Right. Pedal pull is another one that we have, and we have a spine corrector.
Yeah, too.
Which is, and besides the other gadgets that he created, like the ring, and now the roller is not Pilates. The roller is very helpful.
Foam roller.
The foam roller. For our work, we benefit from using the roller the way we benefit from using a big Swiss ball, but it's not Pilates. And we adapt our work to the roller and we get more challenge. But most of these gadgets are used for more challenging purpose. Like if you're an athlete and you really need to train and be challenged, then we will give you a lot of, depending what kind of athlete, whether you need to have your feet be stronger, your arms be stronger, your abdomen, your spine, we use that equipment.
All right. So besides equipment, of course, one of the most important thing in the studio is the teacher, right? So which are most important skills which teacher should master to truly teach Pilates method?
Well, after Joe passed away and the method was recognized, I also have worked and trained, and he's my mentor, Mr. Brent Anderson of the Polestar Company. And this happened because we were at a cocktail party and Kathy and I were the guests and of all the people who did Pilates. And I asked uh, Ken Endelman, whom I had known before during the trial, if there was anyone who was scientific that would give me answers to my whys, that would give me a manual, that would give me an order, that would, because I didn't have anything. I had all these titles, but I didn't have one piece of paper. And it was a very strange sensation. And I noticed that as we were growing, there was a need.
Yeah, of course. Now you have to have a
Right.
certificate.
And so I was introduced to Brent, and I had Brent come to Puerto Rico to train my teachers there in postdoc system. And I took the system myself, and I love it. I just, to me, I put it into many, many things, and I always give credit to my source, which is very important. When I have created a movement, I say, this is mine. When I have looked at Brent and I like the movement he did, I say, this is Brent Anderson. I learned it from Brent. I learned it from Carola. I learned it from Rail. Or I'm open or to everybody.
Yeah,
But
great.
especially Brent Anderson, I took his course. All of my teachers took the postdoc course, and it's very much integrated into Lolita Pilates.
Well, that's amazing. I think it's important we have this anatomical background and it's
Yes.
everything scientifically, backed up and
And he is the person truly that has taken that field and trained in it. Brent is got doctorates and he's very well trained.
yeah. And so Pilates is changed, right? In the way it was taught that time, in the way it's now.
Yes.
And
Now we can ask why.
why?
Why? Why this? Why that?
Yeah, now we can ask. And so are some aspects of original teaching that you feel has been lost? Like the way like Carola taught,
yes,
Joe.
feet. We've lost the importance of feet. Joe gave it importance. He created the foot corrector. He created the toe stretcher. He worked a lot with rollers and balls. And this, most teachers teach you a class and never mention your
Never
feet.
touch it.
It's
Yeah.
like they don't even exist. And when your feet are not solid on the ground, and if you are not, and they're correct, they're not pronating or supinating, your whole body is standing on a solid base. Well, if it's not, your poor body is not solidly based. The roots, those are their roots. That is very much neglected. That is very much neglected. And the work of, we used to have a lot of standing Cadillac, which was on the other side of the Cadillac, and you would do standing work. And one of the beauties of Pilates is that most of the work is supine, as we say, lying down, face up. And that's one opportunity which is excellent because you feel without strain so much. But when you have the chance to stand and do the work, it adds a whole new measure of understanding of what you're doing.
What is the word? How do you feel about the philosophy of the method? the philosophy?
Well, his philosophy was body, mind, and spirit. And there's no doubt about it. It took me a long time because I understood body, mind, but I didn't understand spirit. But now I do.
Okay.
And the more comfortable that you become with the method, the more you integrate with the method, you find that it is truly the mind guides the body, and then you
Elevates.
achieve a spiritual connection.
Yeah, that's only can be achieved by the practice, right? Cannot
Experience,
explain it.
experience, and no, you cannot explain it. So that is.
Lolita, what advice would you give to aspiring instructors who want to stay true to the roots of Pilates while meeting the demands of the model audience?
Come study Lolita's legacy. It's right there for you, right there in Vietnam. She's from the Ukraine, and it's part of their mission to spread Pilates all over the world, which is beautiful.
Would take the mission, but what would you advise them? For example, sometimes it's very doubting to take some short course or the longer course.
Don't. And always ask about the person. Is this person certified? What is this person's training? You're giving your most precious tool, which is your body. You're giving it into the hands of a teacher and saying, here, teach me how to use it. And you have to make sure that she is qualified to teach you. And you don't get qualified in five lessons. At the age of 90, I am still learning. And you have a responsibility to keep learning for the rest of your life. If you really are serious about doing Pilates. And I say to people, look, if you're not serious about doing Pilates, get out. Get out.
Well,
It's hard work. It's very hard work. And if you don't love it and enjoy it and feel satisfaction from it, get out. There's so many other things you can do.
so specifically, your training took 500 hours, and this is a standalone of training, right? We have around that time 1 year, 2 years.
But my people are pretty good at keep learning because I
Well, you never
encourage
stop.
it.
Yeah, you never stop learning.
You
That's true.
never stop learning, and that's what. And if you fall in love with it, you enjoy learning. You enjoy looking at it a different way and you learn.
Yeah, and we have science now, and so much evolved, so we can pick small things from new discoveries about the human's body, right? Integrate it.
There's so much.
Lolita, as someone who has contributed so much to the global Pilates community, to name a few, you're doing the Pilates Heritage Congress in birthplace of Joe, and installed a plaque near the Joseph's birth house, and organized the event in Ferncliff Cemetery to honor his memory. What do you hope your legacy will be?
That all of you, it's all in your hands, I've done my job. It's up to you people to really spread the word and educate people. We are teachers. That's a very important title. It is education. The more they know, the more they learn, the better they are. So therefore, that is what I've done. I've passed it on to you, a great gift,
Thank you.
And let's see what you do with it.
Thank you very much. We'll try to do our best.
I know, I know.
Finally, reflecting on your journey, how has Pilates shaped your life? Not just a career, but a philosophy and a lifestyle.
Oh, well, I think the fact that I am 90 years old and that I still have some problem with the knee, and that's been 62 years now, but I've learned to live with it, and it hasn't stopped me in any way. And I am a very positive person. For me, the glass is always half
Full.
full, and I don't like to dwell on bad things. No, I tend to move on and just enjoy life as much as you possibly can. And the main part of enjoying life is enjoying the work you do. That you do in order to earn your living is the what. When you wake up in the morning, that you know you're going to do something you like to do, and not something that you're doing for a salary at the end of the week.
Yeah, that's important.
Yes,
This is what keeps the fire on
right,
and not really boring.
right.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
Well, it's been truly inspiring to talk to you and listen to your insights and your stories. Every time it sounds like a new story. And thank you for sharing your wisdom, Lolita, with all of us and Pilates community all around the world.
Thank
It's
you.
out there. Thank you.
And the very best to you. And definitely, if you want to enjoy a life of being up, try Pilates.